Let me put this on for a little bit. I know it's kind of dark here, but how's it going, everyone? I'm gonna have to turn off this light because I'll be driving, but I'll be talking while I'm driving. So let me just put this here. Let me turn on a vehicle. So I titled this "A Critique of the Olympics." There's a lot of stuff that occurred with this Olympics. So let me just talk about this as I drive. All right, and I'm giving you a Chicano perspective on this. So I want to address the whole the white woman that was supposedly breakdancing from Australia. As you guys know, I've been into hip hop culture since I was a kid, living out here in Los Angeles. I've been involved in all that culture, and I was there in the early 80s as a kid breakdancing. I was there when it appeared out here in the West Coast. So I was there at the kind of like at the golden era beginning. I mean the beginning golden era of this hip hop and Bboy type culture, as well as the popping culture as well. And so I was all involved in that. And I'm actually still involved in it. So, anyways, so the whole hip hop stuff, if you know the culture, the dance, and everything out here in Los Angeles, b-boying started in New York, and then it spread, all over the United States and even the whole world as well. It became popular. But out here in Los Angeles, we have a particular history when it comes to b-boying. I don't know all the details of the history, but I know some. But I could tell you that there was b-boys that were out here in Los Angeles in the early 80s. My knowledge of it is that out here there was all throughout Los Angeles, there was a time when a lot of us kids were out there breakdancing and popping and busting out the cardboards with our ghetto blasters. And we were in the neighborhoods, the corners, the schools, the streets, the malls, and just about anywhere. I remember when I was a kid, you would go even to like the hospital, and there's like kids breakdancing right there in the hall, breakdancing happening at the malls and on the streets. I remember us neighbor, a lot of our, when I was a kid, a lot of us, would, be in the corner of the street with our cardboard boxes, our ghetto blaster, bumping K-Day. You guys don't know, I'm going way back, way back to the old school. So K-Day, and not the FM station, but the AM. The original K-Day. That's when That was like the first rap hip hop major radio station that ever existed, and we used to just bump a lot of that stuff and then break dance and pop to all that. This is what the early '80s, and and a lot of us poor kids were into that. You know, like um, you had brown and black, Filipino. You know, and so sometimes you had some white people who grew up in the poor community. Sometimes you have them involved in that as well. You know, they back then I didn't see a lot of Asians back then out here. You know, especially out here in the San Fernando Valley where I'm from. The only ones I don't know if they consider themselves, but the only ones that I've seen out here was like Filipinos. There was some Hawaiians, and obviously Mexicans, Chicanos. You know, black people. You know, we all grew up around each other, and we got all into this. You know, started breaking and popping and everything. And this is what we were into, you know. And and so there is a culture that's, you know, that was formed or basically back then based on this hip hop and back then they would call it rap. It wasn't really the term hip hop wasn't really, especially in the West Coast, it wasn't like mainstream. It was, we called it rap back then, you know, and we would have all these battles and all this stuff. Different crews out here battling each other. Everywhere you went, there was crews battling each other, and I remember I would sometimes go to like churches and all that. I was involved in church at that time, and we had our own crew in church, and we would break dance and pop right there in the churches. I mean, it was everywhere. It was a thing to do back then, especially if you lived in the so-called minority communities out here. So there is like a whole history and culture behind that, and a lot of times when we were breakdancing and popping, it was a way to either stop violence. I remember this aspect of the whole b-boy culture was to we got into breakdancing and popping as you know, we would have beefs with people, and we, instead of committing violence, we would battle with dance. And this actually, during that time, a lot of gang banging was like, it kind of it decreased, and so it was a good positive outlet for the younger generations to you know, to handle their beefs and all that through dance, you know. And so, and this is how we would, you know, it settle our beefs, and it would prevent violence, you know. So the b-boy culture, the popping and all that, the hip hop, that kind of stuff right there, this was before gangster rap, you know. Gangster rap wasn't even around at that time. So it was mostly rap, you know, and the rap was like, it wasn't as violent as when the gangster rap started coming in, you know. So So this whole breaking and popping scene was a way for it was an outlet for kids, and the younger generation, especially in the barrios out here, the ghettos, and it was a way, it was an activity to keep kids out of trouble, and so this is what this culture, you know, was about in the ghettos and the barrios out here in Los Angeles. Um, so one of the criticisms of this, this white Australian girl with a PhD, it's just I actually saw a post by I think it's like a Black Revolutionary page or something. And they actually had a good critique of this white woman, and she's a professor and all that. And I heard that she wrote something in response to all her criticism, and she was trying to come off from her white feminist perspective and claiming that she she was kind of like a victim of the hegemony in some sense, or the patriarchy and all that, because of her criticism of has happened, you know um and that the judges were not fair and this and that and blah blah blah. Actually I heard this from another reporter that they were this is what she was saying. I actually have to find that article or some and try to read what she wrote. But I heard that perspective. I'm like, what? I'm like, seriously, like, um, and then I read the post from the Black Revolutionary one. It was actually a good critique, and it was basically accusing her of culture appropriation. Although I didn't agree with the post that they're trying to say that the b-boy culture was strictly black and this and that, and everybody else is like appropriating black culture and this and that. And now there's a whole debate in New York about hip hop culture, and if it was strictly black creation. And actually, there's some Puerto Ricans that are arguing against that and saying, wait a minute. I even heard that the first hip hop song was even had like salsa and Tito Puente and all that. And I was like, wow, I didn't know that. So the Puerto Ricans have a good case that it was not just black people that were involved in the creation of hip hop, but there was brown people, Puerto Rican brown people. Some of them are Afro Puerto Ricans. Some of them were indigenous Puerto Ricans as well. And but and I tend to agree with that. Hip hop culture was not strictly created by black people, although black people had a major influence, a major. They were in obviously a lot of MCs were black, right? But there was some others that were involved in that too. You had Puerto Ricans that were involved in emceeing, um, and you had other ethnicities out here. That's the East Coast, but I don't want to get into the West Coast and everything, because the West Coast we had Chicanos out here who were rappers and involved in a lot of stuff out here. The DJing, the b-boying, the popping, the graffiti, all that stuff. So obviously in one coast, the East Coast, you had Dominicans, you had Cubans, you had Puerto Ricans. Out here in the West Coast, you had a lot of Mexicans, Chicanos out here. Um, and so we were involved in a lot of this West Coast stuff and everything. But besides that, I had to agree with the Black Revolutionary post where they basically were accusing this white lady of misrepresenting the culture and culturally appropriating the b-boy culture and all that, and because of her misrepresentation of the b-boy culture, she made it look silly, and a mockery, an insult, you know. So I was like, wow, that is very interesting right there what they said, and I heard, that they're not going to incorporate b-boying in the Olympics, for 2028 because of that incident right there. So now, because of her misrepresenting and insulting our culture, now there's a consequence where they're oppressing our culture and not letting it being represented in the Olympics, So because of this white woman, now b-boying is not going to be incorporated in the Olympics of 2028 because she made a mockery of it. So that was a good critique. But besides that whole Olympics thing, what I did like though is there was the first Chicano. Actually, the first medal that was given to the United States was by a Chicano. That was like the first bronze. The United States didn't win any other medal. It was just the bronze. The first time, maybe the last time, but it's by a Mexican from the United States. I say he's a Chicano, right? That's what a Chicano is. Born in the United States, and he represented as much as he could, and he did his best, and he earned that and worked hard, and he definitely is part of that culture, and he won that bronze. Whereas that white woman, she made a mockery of our culture, and she thinks she's all intellectual about it, and she wanted to incorporate her all like different types of dances into the b-boy, and at the same time she was just a terrible dancer in terms of b-boying. And I seen this in the b-boy culture a lot of times. um Whenever there's like a girl, right, and this is in general, it could be a white girl or an Asian girl or Mexican girl, whatever. Just because it's a girl, they're all clapping their hands and say, "Go, yeah, yeah!" Like, "Oh, she's really good." There's a lot of hype just because she's a female, right? And the way I am is like, I don't care if you're a male or female. If you're gonna be boy, and you're out there performing in a huge stage, you better be good, or else you're gonna be everyone's gonna laugh at you, right? Now, I seen in some of the circles I've been involved, because I'm also involved in that, you know, and I seen at times where, yeah, guys, especially men of color, right, and a white woman comes over here and tries to act like she's a B girl, and she's looking all sloppy, and it looks like her moves are not even on point or clean or sharp. Looks like when she's dancing, she's a lot of times they're all just fumbling, and they can't even do their moves right, and it looks like they're just lazy dancing, right? And I kind of saw that even in the film Breaking, when that white girl, she's trying to do her ballet stuff, and she tries to break dance. She's not that good. If you actually looked, and I saw the film back then, I'm like, this white girl's trying to break dance, and they're all like giving her status and everything, and I'm like, she's not even that good. And from my experience, I have seen girls that are good at breakdancing, and what I've seen is girls that are not good. Nobody tells them, hey, you need to get better. You need to train more, or you got bad technique or whatever. but sometimes they're afraid to hurt their feelings, and because they don't want to hurt their feelings, right? And they, oh, it's a woman, right? But they don't give them the truth. So, Crazy Legs, the Puerto Rican, came out and said that there should have been some coaches there telling her the truth and say, hey, you need to get better. As a matter of fact, the Olympics, why did they allow her to even qualify as a breakdancer, as a B girl? It's just mind-boggling. Um, so now she's the laughing stock of the Olympics. Everybody knows it. But let me go back to the Chicano who was B-boy, man. He worked hard. His father was a B-boy and Mexican as well, and his son became one, and he worked hard and everything, and he deserved that bronze. Um, so, anyways, so obviously that this white woman is trying to play the victim, that she's a victim of hegemony, and the judges gave her a zero. No, it's not even that. She's just a terrible B girl, or so called. I wouldn't even call her a B girl. What the heck is she doing? All those sprinkler, corny moves. I seen a lot of these white people, like when they can't dance at the clubs, they do all these stupid moves, the goofy. They try to act goofy because they can't dance. I seen that. And they think they could play it off, and everybody's, oh yeah, ha, ha, laughing, giggling, and having a good time. But at the same time, they don't know how to dance, so they get away with that by acting goofy and stuff like that. So, but it's just terrible. Like, it backfired on her. So, so she's obviously, people are definitely, you know, they're not taking her serious or anything like that. Um, yeah, definitely. So she misrepresented the culture, and I think the judges were on point, giving her zeros, and that's good because she misrepresented it and she wasn't good at all. Um, and and the and the and she is misrepresenting, misappropriating the culture, and she's not a victim of hegemony and patriarchy. It's just people try to play the victim when the truth is that they're just not good. um, so obviously she's not the women were not the victim of hegemony and patriarchy, because there was a woman that won the contest. Just having an all-female contest right there is just showing, hey, women are allowed to compete and to and to show their skills. How is that being a victim? That's not a victim. That's not being a victim. And and obviously there was a woman that won the B girl competition. So, and she's not complaining that she's a victim. She won a medal, right? So, anyways, that's the problem with these white privileged women with PhDs that never grew up in the ghetto, never grew up poor, broke, or in dysfunctional families, where they grew up in that culture, where there's drugs and violence and all that, and poverty and all that. She never grew up in that, where she had to use dance as an outlet to escape the gang banging, to escape the negativity and stuff like that. She never grew up that way, so she's obviously misrepresenting the culture, and I think she rightly deserves to be criticized, and she's obviously gonna lecture and write all these articles while she's a victim of hegemony and the patriarchy and all that. Oh, you just suck, and you're not you should, if you want to get better, start working on your skills, start practicing more, and you'll get better, right? And have someone who's gonna honestly coach you, and tell you the truth instead of always saying, "Oh, I'm too scared to critique you because you're a woman, right? I don't want to hurt your feelings, right? I don't want to be the male patriarchy and stuff like that." That prevents real critiques and criticism. And when you don't have that, it's like, oh, you don't grow, So obviously, someone needs to tell her the truth. Um, and I think this needs to be done in a lot of this dance culture out here, because I've seen people who are overrated, and they're not as good as what everybody says they are. But anyway, that's just my opinion. But definitely, the Olympics. I actually had to um, rename the topic here, and just because I just focused on the whole b-boy b-girl stuff and everything. Um, but definitely, so you got those perspectives right there, and one is you got the white woman with white privilege with her PhD, trying to trying claiming that she's a victim, but she's obviously misappropriating and misrepresenting the culture. And then you got the opposite, the black revolutionaries who claim everything is black, but don't really regard brown folks as being co-creators of the whole b-boy culture and hip hop and rap culture. So I don't agree with the white and black perspectives. I come off with the Chicano perspective, how the brown perspective, and the brown perspective is more like, okay, you know, okay, we know that other ethnicities, black, white, Asian, all that are definitely, they have been involved in the hip hop and rap culture as well. But we gotta acknowledge that, brown folks have been involved from the beginning, whether it's Puerto Ricans or, you know, um, and Cubans, or Dominicans, and obviously there's Afro Cubans, Afro Dominicans, and Afro Puerto Ricans, but there's also been indigenous that have been part of those cultures as well. So we got to acknowledge the brown culture, the brown roots of that as well. And you come to the West Coast, you have the Chicanos. A lot of Chicanos have been involved in this rap and hip hop, b-boy culture, popping culture, DJ, graffiti culture. You know, a lot of us out here were involved in the beginning of that stuff, and we actually spread it all throughout the West Coast and everything. So, anyways, I think the brown perspective needs to be heard here. We hear all this black and white perspective all the time, and we don't hear the brown perspective. And I want to just give you guys that little perspective there. Anyways, well, I'm gonna let you guys go. You guys have a good night. This is the Conscious Chicano, and I'm out.